In the previous lesson, we talked about the initial process of experimentation and testing to look at the screen for just a few moments and see if a system that you invented could work. Now, we invented a system that uses the CCI average. We changed the settings to 144.90, which is preposterous, right? Nobody would ever use settings like that. But that's what inventing a trading system is all about. Not necessarily making something up from scratch or programming a new indicator, but rather maybe looking at an indicator from a different perspective that maybe no one has ever looked at it before. The next step in the process, and we've described this a little bit previously, is to open up a document. You can open it up in Word, or you can write it in a notebook, or anything that you choose like that. And what we want to start doing is writing out some rules, and that's what I'm going to do right here while we're on the line together. I'm going to increase my font size and clickety-clack a bit, so if you hear my keyboard typing, you'll know what it is. So I'm going to call it the CCI, and then I'm going to look around the room, lampshade. Let's see, lampshade. And then I'm going to call it the lampshade rewards. Okay, so that's the name of my system. I just gave it a name so I could start with it. And here's what I want to describe it. I want to do, so there's the name of the system, and a short description is buying or selling in a trend when the CCI reaches overbought or oversold. So it's a brief description, and that clears up any questions about whether this is a trending system or a counter-trending system. We're definitely going to look at it, and we're going to use it in a trend, and we're going to exclusively focus on trends when we do this. Now, in the previous lesson, and we talked about some entries, so we're going to, step one will be, and this is our checklist. So I'm going to call it the checklist. We're going to go step by step. A great book on this subject is the Checklist Manifesto. It's an excellent book. I think you'll enjoy it thoroughly. It doesn't have really anything to do with, well, it does actually talk about in the investment world. Checklist. Step one, look for higher highs, higher lows to identify an upward trend. In step two, check the CCI, set the CCI average to 144.90. Check the CCI, identify an area where the CCI reaches oversold. Buy financial instrument when CCI comes out of oversold above negative 100. Stop below recent low. Profit target at least 2 times stop loss. And we're done. Now, these are initial rules that create a primary checklist. We have not included details about which financial instruments work best, what days of the week work best, whether a short-term or long-term chart works best, but we've got our checklist, and we've made a lot of progress here, and you'd be surprised at how many systems you can invent that work perfectly fine if you just simply get into the process of writing out some checklist rules. And that's it right here. Now, we could add more stuff later, but this is going to be enough. Now, what I'll do is pause the recording right now, which will take me a second. And when I come back, we're going to look on some stock charts, and we're going to follow this checklist and see how well we do. So just take me a moment to pull up all these different ways that I'm recording. And we're back. What I've done in TradeStation is formatted my symbol and loaded 200 days of data on the 5-minute chart. I've got my CCI set to my ridiculous lampshade settings. And I'm going to scroll back in time. I don't care if I see what happens. I'm not worried about knowing what happens or anything like that. I simply want to scroll back in time. and I want to look for a place where the conditions that I've written in my document exist. So first, look for higher highs or higher lows to identify an upward trend. So this is a downward trend. We could do that next, but we want to look for higher highs and higher lows. Oh, we got them here. We're finally doing that in this area right here on the right side of my screen. So I'm going to move forward, and there we go. On the far right side of my screen, and if you expand this you make this full screen, you can see it even better. You can see that we have a drop down below -100. That's oversold on the CCI. We're in this upward trend because we have higher lows and higher highs on price. You can always know that by drawing a trend line, right? And then we drop down and go into oversold. And we have an opportunity here. All right, I'm going to draw a circle in two places where I see a trade. See one right there. We drop down and we come up out of oversold, and that creates above -100. That creates a buy trade. And then we would put a stop loss underneath the lows, and that would stop out. I'm going to expand this and make this a little bit larger so you can see it even better. Just take me a minute to get back to where we were. There we go. Now, it happens all over again just a moment later. Just a brief moment later. I'm going to move that circle out of the way. We come back out of oversold again, right here. So when we jump up above this level, down here below, we jump up, the yellow line crosses above -100, we buy it, have a stop loss below the recent lows, and a profit target, twice that size, so up in this area up here. Somewhere up in there. Not looking for much. And then we move forward. And it looks like we jump upward. So that's a winner. This process of using the checklist to identify situations where the conditions that we've listed have been met, and then we pretend that we take the trade, we write down numbers or take a spreadsheet and document it. And what we would say is, so we get a, trade one, loser, negative, negative 50 cents. Trade two, winner, positive $1.50, and so forth. And you start to take notes on every single trade and accumulate some documentation. Now, we're not going full bore here yet. We're going to go full bore eventually. But you can see how we're creating order out of chaos. We started with an inventing of a system. We identified some parameters. We wrote a checklist. We went back on the charts further in time. We identified places where that checklist could be put into place. And we started logging our success or failures along the way. And you immediately will begin to either have confidence in your trading system that you've invented, or you will immediately begin to feel like it stinks. And then you're going to know you need to make a change. One last item before we conclude this lesson today. Our checklist was for buy trades, right? In an upward trend. We'll copy this entire checklist now, and we'll create a checklist for sell trades. So we're going to look for lower highs in the trend and lower lows to identify a downtrend. Then in step 3, we'll identify an area where the CCI reaches overbought. And instead of buying, we're going to sell the financial instrument when the CCI comes out of overbought. Overbought. That's just not even a word. So we'll say below positive 100. Then we'll put the stop below the recent low, and the profit target will be at least 2 times the stop loss. I'm going to make this a one-page document. And I will save it for you and upload it right into today's lesson so you can follow along with this very system.